Hello and welcome to CommLab India's eLearning Champion Pod. I'm your host Tanushree, back with another interesting episode. We all are aware of the increasing importance of upskilling and reskilling in today's competitive corporate world, and how continual learning helps organizations to stay ahead of the curve. In today's podcast, we will explore the crucial role first line managers play in upskilling their teams. Joining me in this interesting conversation is Shalini, Director Learning Solutions. A very warm welcome to you, Shalini.
Hi, Tanushree. Thank you very much, and a very warm welcome to all our viewers.
Yeah. So, without much ado, let's dive into today's episode. To begin with, Shalini, I would like to understand why is a manager's involvement in training important?
Right. So I'd like to respond to that by throwing a question to our viewers. When you think of training, whose burden is it anyway? I mean, it's traditionally L&D has been the one whose sole responsibility is to equip teams with the required knowledge and skills for them to do their job well. So they design all kinds of learning experiences which are impactful, relevant, and so on.
Right.
But the bigger question is training exclusively the responsibility of L&D, or is there a role that first line managers play in their team's learning goals? So when we think manager, we think performance. And typically, I think the thing that comes most easily to mind is the discussions over performance, the performance reviews. And it
Hmm.
is good because those give great inputs to our teams
Right.
on our strengths and where we can improve.
Hmm.
But if we flip it around and we start from the learning end of the stick, I think that's where we can, as first line managers, we can demonstrate a greater commitment to our team's development goals because development is going to translate into improved performance. So instead of focusing just on the results, if we as first line managers can be a part of the ongoing learning journeys of our teams,
Hmm.
then the teams are going to feel more supported, they'll be more engaged,
Right.
and there's going to be a better impact. And really, L&D, while they roll out all kinds of programs, it's the
Hmm.
manager who has this daily contact with the team, who is closest to the team, understands their day-to-day challenges best.
Right.
And of course, the L&D manager does involve first line managers in the initial phase of this entire training because that's where they get their inputs from managers on the skill gaps, what are the areas to focus on, and they're closely involved at the very beginning of this whole journey. And
Right.
then first line managers come in towards the end when L&D reaches out to
Hmm.
measure the impact of the training. That's
Hmm.
when there are a lot of conversations that happen along whether the managers see any visible or tangible improvement in the
Right.
performance of their team as a result of this learning intervention. So
Hmm.
we see managers closely involved at the beginning and closely involved at the end.
Right.
But what about all the time in between? So that is where I think it really pays for first line managers to be actively involved. I
Right.
think there are any number of studies which show that manager involvement and support plays a key role in retention of their teams.
Right.
So, what better way to demonstrate it than by walking alongside their teams during their learning journeys rather than just, having performance related conversations quarterly or annually or whatever.
True. Yeah, so well, it was really insightful to understand, Shalini, that it's not only the role of the L&D teams or the L&D managers specifically to take care about the employees' training, but first line managers also do have an important part to play when it comes to training or upskilling and reskilling their teams.
Right.
So, what should managers do before training? How can they
Right.
prepare their teams for the upcoming training?
Right. I think it begins with engaging with the teams. See, typically what happens is most of us receive a notification from our LMS saying
Right.
that you've been assigned this training. And
Hmm.
that's such an impersonal way to hear that, there is an upcoming training on your schedule.
True.
Now, a better way would be when the manager knows that certain trainings are important and they're upcoming, engage with the team much before. Create a
Right.
sense of anticipation about the upcoming initiative.
Hmm.
Tie it back, have conversations with their teams about how that training is relevant to their roles. What is
Right.
the purpose? What is the purpose of the training in the first place? How is it relevant to their roles? What are the
Right.
benefits of doing this? And how will it help the learner improve their performance and also enhance their career? Because it could be a great career enhancement opportunity. So
Hmm.
these are some very quick ways, which don't really require too much of time for the manager to begin doing with their teams.
Right.
And while they are at it, it also helps if the managers can let their team members know
Hmm.
that I mentioned relevance and purpose.
Yes.
So ask the team to draft their own personal objectives or goals. I'm
Right.
sure most people do it. They have their list of goals and objectives
Correct.
and encourage them to see how this upcoming initiative will help
Hmm.
them move closer towards achieving that goal. If
Hmm.
it could be a new skill or it could be bettering an existing skill, whatever it is, it's going to just move them closer
Right.
towards improved performance. So that
Correct.
is one another important way because, of course, learning and experiences which are crafted by L&D
Hmm.
always have a very powerful what's in it for me at the beginning of the training.
Hmm.
But I would like to suggest that, nothing more impactful than when the manager themselves, steps in and lets the team know what's in it for them.
Right.
Another thing is, see, it's one thing to just motivate people and let them know why it's important. The
Hmm.
other thing is really which everybody struggles with time.
Right.
So it may be that the team is really motivated to learn, but there is absolutely no way they can do it with the existing workload. So this
Correct.
is where I feel managers can play a very big role in helping the team establish their priorities and
Right.
helping them block a little bit of their time for training. So this
Correct.
is where the manager has visibility into the
Hmm.
workload and which, an L&D manager will have no access to this kind of information.
True.
But this is where, a manager can work collectively with the team to establish some priorities
Right.
and also provide the big picture, as I said, connect not just uh, the training to the learners, the employees' individual development goals, but also to the bigger picture, the strategic lens, so to speak,
Hmm.
where the learner can see how them doing better in this particular area contributes to the overall health of the business. So
Correct.
that way, you don't feel like you're just a cog in the wheel. You are playing a meaningful, relevant role and
Hmm.
helping the business go forward.
Correct.
And of course, one of the most powerful ways in which managers can really support their teams before the training is also to show the team that they are also learners
Correct.
and be enthusiastic about their own learning. Because
Right.
let's face it, the moment we say training, most employees react with a little bit of cynicism because
True.
sometimes, it's just time away from work and
Right.
it's like, seen as something disruptive unless if it's designed carefully.
Hmm.
So this is where a manager's enthusiasm to be a learner by
Right.
modeling the right behavior can really impact the team. When they see it in action, somebody being enthusiastic about their own learning,
Right.
investing in themselves as a learner, then
Hmm.
that also creates a connect. And I believe that's another powerful motivational way to support your team before the team engages in their respective learning journeys.
Yes. So you're right, Shalini. And like I could also resonate with a few of the points that, yes, when we actually hear of training, we sometimes feel that, oh, we have our deliverables
Right.
and back to back meetings. In that busy schedule, finding time for continual learning or upskilling ourselves sometimes becomes difficult. So when
Absolutely.
it comes from our managers, that how important this training is and how it can help us grow and make our daily work life really seamless, so that thing is really important. And when it comes from our managers, it definitely helps us understand the relevance of the training better, and we feel
Right.
more comfortable to look forward to it, and we are more open to attend those
Absolutely.
training sessions. Right.
Absolutely. It
Yes.
lowers the resistance.
Right. We are more receptive towards the training that is
Exactly.
going to, yeah. So, Shalini, how can managers support their teams during the training process? We have just heard from you that how before training they can prepare
Right.
their teams, but what's their role or how do they support their team during the training?
So a lot of things are similar actually, what you would expect a manager to do before. If they can
Right.
continue during it, doing it during the training, that would be great. So
Right.
continue to be engaged, be interested in
Hmm.
your team's learning.
Right.
Support them. First, be aware. That's the
Hmm.
first step. What is your team learning?
Correct.
Be interested. Show an active interest and
True.
offer your support if the team for any reason is facing any kind of challenge.
Right.
Encourage them to, again, you've had those talks before the training, but it's always good to remind them to
Right.
focus on their short term and their long term goals.
Hmm.
And if there's any kind of feedback that the team wants to give during their training, it's
Right.
always a great idea to take note of it.
Hmm.
Maybe they can't address it directly through the L&D solution, but there
Right.
are other touch points through which that can be addressed.
Right.
And once again, reevaluate priorities. You establish your priorities, you look at their workload, reevaluate them if required. This is
Hmm.
especially relevant if your team is going through a very long learning journey with
Right.
multiple trainings. So this
Right.
is where you have to keep taking stock and keep having conversations with your team
Hmm.
as a whole to see how
Correct.
best you can support them, how best you can reorganize maybe certain deliverables and so
Hmm.
on. And
Right.
one more thing is, it's very important for the team to know that as they're progressing through the learning,
Hmm.
what um, skills or knowledge areas can they check off?
Right.
Because before this training, okay, they knew they were heading in a certain direction. So it
Hmm.
once again helps to remind them, show the skill gaps that are being addressed or that have already been addressed and
Hmm.
what's coming up next.
Correct.
And set the benchmark, as somebody who's a committed learner yourself.
Right.
And in some instances, if the team is really facing a very complicated, complex kind of subject area in which they require training,
Right.
and this is when I feel the managers can point them
Hmm.
to other ways to learn as well outside of the strictly formal event.
Right.
See, a lot of on-the-job training happens anyway,
True.
but if you can identify which areas your
Hmm.
individual team members are struggling with, you
Right.
can coach them, mentor them, in a very focused way.
True.
You can also encourage them to have learning buddies,
Hmm.
pick up learning buddies because that makes everybody feel that they're in it together. And
Correct.
also, it helps to clarify important doubts and share best practices and so on.
Right.
And yeah, at this point, it's also important for the manager to let the team know that they are also completing their own trainings. This is, of
Right.
course, relevant if everybody is assigned to the same set of trainings. For
Right.
instance, if there's a huge organizational change,
Hmm.
everybody goes through that training. So
Right.
it's like a shared journey, really,
Hmm.
even if they're at different levels. So
True.
complete your own training. That way you're more equipped to take discussions forward when your team wants to talk about something which is a concern, or which a new idea, some insight, some actionable next step. So
Correct.
encourage this discussion of learnings, and also remind them that it's very valuable to make use of the existing communities of practice within the organization.
Right.
So direct them to those communities of practice, encourage them to be a part of it, encourage them to actually, as they're going through this learning journey, to document their own learning.
Right.
Have a learning journal. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Just a few bullets every time they go through a training. It
True.
really helps to reduce it down to writing as, something you can look at,
Hmm.
and also helps you to map the progress that you are making as a learner,
Hmm.
and encourage them to share again these kind of insights or best practices with the team
Right.
whenever possible.
Right. So, thank you for sharing such useful tips, Shalini, because the role of the first line managers during the training sounds really important. As you stated, that they are not only supposed to just inform their teams about the upcoming training, but they can handhold them through the learning journey to make it
Right.
more meaningful. So
Right.
when they like as you mentioned before some time that making a note of whatever important learnings they have, preparing a learning journal can really help them. And definitely after training also, whenever it is a
Yes.
time of need, that time, that moment of need, those learning journals can be really helpful to just
Right.
go and check and proceed further. So that was really wonderful to understand that the role of learning, the training managers or first line managers don't just end by introducing the topic, but really they can be like a true friend, a true mentor. Walking
Right.
through the journey with the learners is really important.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, while I wouldn't recommend that you handhold the team,
Hmm.
again, it's a very fine balance. You wouldn't want to be
Right.
overly intrusive.
True.
So it's a fine balance between knowing when to support, where to support, and when to just step
Right.
back and let the team
Correct.
just take it on their own. So yeah, I
Definitely.
think that's something that any good manager should be cued into, how their
Right.
team feels about something
Yes. True.
at any given point in their learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So handholding, by handholding, I meant that during the
Yeah,
time of
of
need,
course.
if your team
Of
members
course.
actually require you.
Right.
So that was wonderful to understand from you, Shalini. And I'm just curious to know that does the role of the manager end with during the training, or do they also have a part to play once the training is complete?
Right.
So any insights on that?
Oh, yes. I think after is really key. It's key because uh, it takes time for the learner
Hmm.
to move from the learning zone to this performance zone. You know,
Right.
and whatever skills you've learned,
Hmm.
now you're back in the real world, and it's your now you have to start applying them in your
Right.
day-to-day work life.
Hmm.
And this is where it can get very frustrating for a learner, for a team member,
Hmm.
uh, to not have opportunities to apply them. So
Right.
this is where I feel after the training, the learning, the first line manager can really uh, discuss application opportunities and also provide them to the
Right.
learner, to the team members.
Hmm.
Maybe there is a safe project on which you can really have somebody work on with their newly found skills,
Right.
the, and be involved. But the main thing
Right.
is to provide those opportunities, because
Correct.
if there are no opportunities to apply them, those skills are going to be lost. No matter how well the learning experience was crafted,
True.
it's just going to evaporate all that learning because you haven't really transferred it into
Correct.
application.
Right.
So this is a very key thing where it's only the first line manager who can provide these opportunities. It's not the L&D manager, it's not the business leaders, it's only the
Absolutely.
first line manager. And really,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, every manager is interested in improving their team perform well,
Mm.
uh, in enhancing individual development so that it all ladders up to the overall team performance.
Right. Mm.
And it's also a good idea to take stock
Mm.
of the skill gap.
Right.
It would have been, if the team members have written down right at the beginning, before the training,
Mm.
what are their goals?
Right.
What's their current state? Where would they like to be with that given area? It's a good
Correct.
idea to go back and ask them to relook that and see
Mm.
the skill or the knowledge gap. Is it bridged? And then provide the opportunities for application.
Yes.
And of course, also, if you're going through a common learning journey, then share your own insights
Right.
with your team on
Mm.
how best, as a team, you can enhance your
Right.
performance in that area.
Mm.
Another thing that really is very motivational is celebrate successes. You know, there are some members in a team who really are very enthusiastic about learning, who finish their learning ahead of others.
Mm.
And just a little bit of acknowledgement of that, a little appreciation can go a long way in helping people feel, a sense of achievement, a sense of belonging.
Right.
So
Mm.
celebrate successes, even if they are very small,
Mm.
because I don't think there's any other platform in which you can do that.
Right.
At the L&D level, maybe it will be just, winners of some of a learning contest or winners of some gamification driven course at that level.
Right.
But here, within your little teams,
Mm.
acknowledge those who have shown that initiative and have been proactive about finishing their learning journeys, and those who
Right.
take part in conversations,
Mm.
discussions.
Mm.
So that is something that can really help. Another thing is, um, have QA sessions. This is where the manager can really help put
Mm.
on the cap of a mentor, a coach, in a sense, and
Right.
also encourage cross learning, because when you have Q&A sessions, it's not only the question asking the question. It's
Mm.
not only the person asking the question who benefits, but it's also the all the others who are attending that session. And
Absolutely.
answers can be provided, by other employees as well.
Right.
So give constructive feedback to your team, take
Right.
constructive feedback,
Mm.
direct them to additional resources if required,
Right.
encourage a lot of, active sharing,
Mm.
and encourage them also to set further goals,
Right.
set further goals for their own development.
Right.
So these are just some ways in which I believe a first line manager can do what, an L&D manager can't do.
Right.
Also provide them additional learning opportunities if they show the interest, and it could be also giving them access to certain learnings,
Mm.
which say some course on LinkedIn Learning, for instance,
Right.
outside of what your organization itself is providing. So these
Okay.
are small ways in which, the first line manager can be a very active contributor to
Mm.
building and nurturing a
Right.
learning culture, a culture of continuous learning and improvement.
True.
And it all begins, yeah, with your own team, really. It begins with yourself, of course, your
Mm.
commitment to being a learner, and
Yes.
extending it, that commitment to supporting your team in their learning goals.
Right. So, really, it's like very interesting to understand that the role of the first line managers in your team's training plays a crucial part. And as you said, that post training also, how to make an opportunity for your team member to really apply the knowledge and the skills that they have acquired during the training sessions is in the hands of the first line manager, of course. And
Right.
also motivating them and encouraging them to take up additional courses, as you said, on LinkedIn Learning, or some joining a community online
Right.
forums to for peer-to-peer learning, and to share your thoughts and opinions on whatever they have learned. That can
Right.
really take them, the entire team, a long way in. And
Absolutely.
yes, and learning would become like every learner would feel motivated to take up further training. And
Right.
as you
Right.
also mentioned, that incentivizing them not on monetary terms, of course, but by acknowledging their participation in the training program can also motivate learners to
Right.
take further training and do continuous upskilling and reskilling of themselves.
Right.
So, yeah. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, what I understood from our discussion, Shalini, is the role of the first line managers is throughout the training, not only during the training, but pre as well as
Yes.
post.
Yes.
But what bothers me now is like, isn't it time consuming for managers
Mm.
to be this involved in training? How do they manage? How do they balance
Right.
their work as well as their involvement in training?
Right. That's a million-dollar question, Tanushree. And I'm sure most managers, shrink away from being that involved because they think there's
Right.
just no time, But the best part about ongoing involvement with the team's learning is you can use your regular touch points with the team,
Right.
but from a learning perspective. Your
True.
regular team meets. You have
Yes.
a 15-minute team meet. You can
Hmm.
use 3 minutes at the
Hmm.
beginning and touch
Right.
on the learning part of it. It
Right.
doesn't take a long time. You can
Hmm.
also use your one-on-ones. And as I mentioned, you can have your mentor hat on when you're doing these one-on-ones, not just from the performance side of things, but also from the learning side of things. And if employees are struggling to still bridge the gap, this is where your those one-on-ones can be really powerful. Make
Right.
use of informal discussion opportunities. Just you bump into somebody in your cafeteria for a cup of coffee, just
Right.
check in. Just check in on, if some ongoing learning is happening and it's important.
Correct.
It pays to just spend a minute checking in. Very informal.
Hmm.
And yeah, so there are ways in which you can leverage, you don't have to exclusively block time unless if the kind of training warrants a Q&A from the manager and the team. The team shows an interest or they ask for a session,
Hmm.
then that's fine. But I'm talking about just these regular touch points that the manager has with the team anyway.
Right.
So all it needs is, 1 minute to just ask somebody, how are you
Hmm.
doing? Is there anything I can support you with? Are
True.
you still struggling with something? Maybe I can direct you to some additional resource.
Correct.
So these are small ways. So I don't think that they make too many demands on the manager's time, but the results are totally worth it because not only do you see learners more committed, more engaged, but
Hmm.
they are more likely to demonstrate
Hmm.
um, improved performance.
Right. So that was really wonderful, Shalini, that you mentioned that it's not only always that formal involvement is required, but yes, the quick catch-ups, and it can
Right,
be in informal ways, can go a long way and help the learners as well as the manager in to be on
right.
the same page that what exactly is that, whether the training is beneficial or not, whether it is fetching the desired results or not.
Yes.
Right. So that was really interesting to know. So I would like to know, Shalini, that how does a manager benefit from active involvement in training? Does he also have some benefits from his active involvement in training?
Yeah, actually, it's a win-win. Not only does the team benefit, but the manager benefits because, see, to begin with, the manager is the one most aware of the
Right.
gaps
Hmm.
and what are the challenges the learner faces on the job.
True.
Now, when the manager is involved during this entire learning process, this journey,
Right.
the manager also gets insights into the
True.
team members' strengths,
Correct.
weaknesses,
Hmm.
uh, their learning agility,
Right.
and it can help them identify people who are ready for a more challenging project,
Correct.
or even for the next role.
Hmm.
It's not always the performance review discussions and the
Right.
performance review data that can give you insights into
Hmm.
who's ready for a bigger role, who's ready, or who is a learning champion,
Correct.
who is the most skilled member in your team uh, when it comes to, even helping the rest of the team raise
Right.
their own performance. So
Correct.
these are some ways the manager gets insights,
Hmm.
and based on this, they can take certain decisions. They can decide on stretch assignments. Who
Okay.
can handle a stretch assignment, for instance,
Hmm.
based on the learning agility that is shown during this entire learning journey. So
Hmm.
I think it's a great way for the manager to also feel the pulse of the team closer,
Right.
and in real time.
Correct.
So I would say it's definitely a win-win for both the manager and their teams. So if
Right.
the manager is involved, she is more likely to see a more
Hmm.
involved team.
Correct. So interesting, Shalini, that it's not only the team or the learners who get benefited, but the managers also get a clear view of what their team is exactly up to. Maybe their learning agility, as you said,
Right.
or what kind of how much they are able to apply their learning, and maybe they can also decide the further course of action. Uh,
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Hmm. So,
That's an
and
important point, actually, Tanushree, because, at the end of it, it's time to
right,
once again reevaluate your goals, your
correct,
development goals, um, just informally,
right,
and set more ambitious goals.
correct,
Always challenge the team to grow and
right.
develop themselves. So, yeah,
Yes,
that's where a manager really has a key role and is also benefited by the improved engagement and performance of the team.
right. And like this also helps them, maybe the manager as well as the team, to contribute to the greater business goals and
Yes,
priorities.
definitely,
Yes.
definitely. I mean,
So,
all this is assuming that L&D has done the foundational step of making sure the training is aligned with the business goals. I mean, with
definitely,
that
yeah,
step firmly in place, and
correct,
by crafting good, relevant, useful, meaningful learning experiences, yes,
definitely,
with all that in place, the involvement of the manager is really a catalyst to making
correct,
sure that, the intended performance
right,
improvements happen as a result of the training.
true. So, what is the overall message you would like to pass it on to our first line managers?
Well, if you are a first line manager, you are a co-owner with L&D in helping improve your team's performance through learning. You're
Right,
already doing it. You've probably raised the request for training. You've, already identified where the skill gaps are,
hmm,
and you're the one who is monitoring the progress of the team real time.
right,
So you're already involved. You're already the biggest stakeholder, in your team's training, learning. So continue that. And while L&D can be called in to develop great, engaging, impactful learning experiences, as
right,
a co-owner with
hmm,
L&D when it comes to learning and training, you play a far bigger role than just being a supervisor to your team.
hmm,
And that, I think, is one of the most rewarding aspects of being a manager when you see your team grow, when you see their development happen, the team meeting their development goals, and all of that laddering up to the performance as a team, as a business.
Well, so it was a wonderful conversation, Shalini. I thoroughly enjoyed all the points that you have covered, and thank you for this wonderful insights. I'm sure our viewers have multiple useful takeaways from the discussion and must be keen to apply them. Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So, with this, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you all. Catch you in the coming week with another interesting episode. Till then, take care and stay tuned.
Thank you.